Welcome to Japanatron.
Hello and welcome to Japanatron. I'm your host, Dave Pavlina, and Japanatron is a podcast about life in Japan and Japanese culture. So today's theme, I call What They Think of Us. Now, us being a creative little play on words, US meaning the United States. These are themes that I've heard over the years from Japanese people, because living abroad is kind of a mirror. You get to see what your own country looks like, from outside the box. You hear what other people say, from other countries about your home country, and it gets pretty interesting. So I got some themes that I've heard time and time again in my during my life in Japan. So I want to talk about these. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are kind of like a little mixture of both. So don't be offended. Fucking Americans, don't be offended. All right, just this is what the world thinks of us. Okay, this is what the world thinks of us. So let's see. Number one, this is probably the one I hear the most often. I heard this so many times from students when I was teaching English and whatnot. The U.S. is wide and big size. Now, this could be, of course, both positive and negative. Everything is bigger and wider. Think Texas, right? Everything's bigger in Texas. They got big cars, big houses. Everything, there's just lots of land, lots of space. There's just so much space to work with that Japan does not have. So there's just this image of America as just being so big and wide and spacious. Cars, meals, houses, and even the people are really big. So, like I said, both positive and negative. Big house, but big people. In fact, Japanese people often take pictures of their massive meals that they get in the U.S., because the portion size is so ridiculous. I think I've talked about that before. They take pictures and show people, oh my God, you got to see these massive portions that Americans eat. And I know like I said, when I was teaching English, students who were planning on studying abroad used to ask me, they used to, express their worries about the food in the U.S. They're like, what do I do? Friends of mine have studied abroad and they come back, and they've put on 10 kilos, 20 pounds or so. What do I do? So I said, well, let's see. Two tips. Number one, eat Japanese food, which is what I would do if I moved back to America. And order the kids' meal, order from the kids' menu in the restaurants. Or order a meal, eat half of it, and take the rest of it home or something. That'll really get you some good cost performance on that. So I kind of agree with this. I definitely agree with this, in fact. I'd much rather own a big house in America. I mean, that is a huge plus. The houses we have in America are huge, especially in select states. I mean, like LA and San Francisco, okay, you're going to pay a huge premium for a big house, of course. But you move out, into somewhat, the more countryside areas, and you get a big house for not too much money. Whereas in Japan, you'd pay up the ass for that house. And you wouldn't even get that big of a house. I've never even seen, big house in Japan versus big house in America. It just doesn't compare. In fact, they showed something on Japanese TV recently with Darvish. I think the dude that plays for the Japanese dude that plays for the Texas Rangers. They were talking to real estate agents, because he was moving to Texas, of course, about the kind of houses he could afford, with his massive salary. And they're showing these houses, and they were insane. They had bowling alleys and swimming pools and movie theaters built into them and saunas and jacuzzis, and just Japan. I've never seen anything like that on TV. The lifestyles in the rich and famous. There's some cool houses, some cool apartments, but I've never seen anything like that. So that is a big bonus. The downside, of course, is the big people. So I think the best deal would be a big American house and a Japanese diet. So that's the best of both worlds. So I'd buy a big house in America and I'd have to eat Japanese food to stay fit. Okay. Moving on. Next one I hear. This is a pretty good one. Americans are casual. I hear this a lot more casual compared to the Japanese in general. Japanese dress up. They're very formal, especially in Tokyo. Osaka maybe is the more casual city. Tokyo, definitely, they're dressed up, suits, lots of makeup, just, dressed to the nines. We in America, we dress more casually, we speak more casually, just in general compared to the Japanese, I'd say. You go to a mall on a weekend in Japan, the women especially are just dressed like models. It's insane. You go to the mall on a weekend in the U.S., jeans and t-shirts, probably. So another good example is waiters and waitresses in the U.S. When we visited, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was shocked at how casual the waiters and waitresses. They would bend down and say, "Hey, I'm Jenny. I'll be your server," and like they're your buddy or something, And they never really do that in Japan. Japan has excellent customer service, of course, unparalleled customer service. But yeah, it is a little cold. It's not that warm, friendly, down-to-earth atmosphere that America kind of does with their customer service. It's a little cold, a little distant, very formal. They use keigo, which is the very formal, polite form of Japanese, typically used in the service industry. Between the customer, for the customers, of course. So there's that. Whereas in America, it's like they're your best buddy. So, yeah, I'd say Americans are more casual. So I've heard that a lot, and yeah, it's kind of a point well taken. Americans are more casual compared to the Japanese, I'd say, in general. So, okay, let's move on. Next one I hear a lot, maybe not so good. Actually, kind of both good and bad. There's both good and bad spins to this statement, and that is the U.S. is aggressive. And the bad spin to this one is, I hear this a lot, is related to this. The U.S. likes war. I heard a number of students when I was teaching English say that. The U.S. just seems to like war. And you look at the history of the U.S., and it's just kind of a list of wars that we've been involved in, and we never really seem to have a long period of peace. We just kind of jump from one war to the next. You look at World War II. World War II, the Korean War, then Vietnam War, and then we had a span of peace there, and then we had the Persian Gulf War, and then there's Iraq and Afghanistan. The list just goes on and on. And yeah, you look at the history of Europe. It's a longer list of wars. But yeah, I'd say when it comes to military engagements, the U.S. definitely bites off a lot. Probably more than it can chew. Japan, yeah, there's some war there in the past. Some World War II stuff going on there. But after that they demilitarized, and it's kind of the passive thing in their constitution, so they really can't engage in any aggressive military actions. They're just strictly a self-defense force. Whereas the U.S. is, unfortunately, kind of the world police force. So I've heard that a lot, is that, unfortunately, the impression that I've heard from a number of people in Japan, Japanese people, of course, is that the U.S. actually likes war, and it's kind of sad, because I don't think we as a nation, the U.S. citizens actually like war. We're just kind of put in this position. So, we can discuss this on and on, so I don't really want to get into that. But, I'm sure you have your opinion on it and whatnot. But that's just, again, it's just something I've heard, and it's just what, it sums up what Japan thinks of the U.S. Not every Japanese, of course, but I've heard this a number of times. Kind of the good spin to this is that American people are more aggressively outgoing compared to the Japanese. They strike up conversations with strangers, maybe, and they aren't as introverted as Japanese. Japanese are known for being kind of shy and introverted. Which, okay, there's some blatant exceptions to that. But yeah, I mean, as a culture, you ask Americans, and that might be the impression they have of Japanese culture. You ask Japanese, and the impression they have of American culture is they're more aggressive, they're more outgoing. So I agree with this in general, but I've also seen this in Japan, interestingly, that it seems that in the big cities, especially Tokyo is infamous for being very cold, is that people don't strike up conversations with strangers and no one's talking on the train. Whereas in the US, people might be talking in situations like that. However, when I lived in the countryside in Japan, this happened a lot more often. Just strangers would strike up conversations. People especially would talk to me just in virtue of me being a foreigner living out there. So, yes, if you want to stereotype the cultures, yes, Japan is known for being introverted and shy, and America is being known for being more outgoing and aggressive. So take that for what it is. Okay, last one. The U.S. is dangerous. Eesh, I hear this one a lot. I heard this a lot from students wanting to study abroad or do a homestay or even do a short stint working abroad. And they were always thinking of doing Australia instead. Australia is really popular. America is also popular. There are definitely a significant number of kind of the America freaks, Japanese people who are just really into American culture. And it's kind of cool. Like they're like into the cowboys, the cowboy hats and the Texas burger and all that kind of stuff, And so those are the kind of people who would be likely to live and study abroad. However, they do have a number of time expressed these kind of fears to me. America's dangerous. And how do I explain this one? Well, number one, there's kind of the media, unfortunately, that's played up. There's the news that comes over. American news, of course, is played in every country in the world, whereas not every story in Japan makes it on the American news. So there's that. I'm kind of talking about the kind of the unfortunate ones that aren't necessarily true. The second way this image comes in is the TV shows and the movies that we export all over the place. Hollywood is a huge industry for us, of course, and our movies, our entertainment are exported, and they're hugely popular in Japan, of course. And you got all these violent movies. You get these really violent, action-packed TV shows that Japan does not produce. Japan really doesn't do that. They do that with their animation, which they're world famous for, because I'm assuming they make money from that. But they really don't export any, they don't make any dramas like that. Their dramas are really kind of love stories and just, human dramas. Very simple and not like much action or budget to them. So I can talk about the TV. I have a lot to say about that and entertainment in another podcast. But okay, so there's that kind of feeling that America is dangerous, is a dangerous country to be in because of the media, the TV shows, and the movies. There's also, unfortunately, the reality, and this, of course, has been a big thing in recent times. We had the Sandy Hook massacre and all these shootings, and the fact that Americans can get guns relatively easily. Our gun laws do not compare to the gun laws of Japan. There's just no comparison there. Japanese people do not have guns at all. Is it possible to get one in Japan? Yes. Is it as easy as America? No fucking way. No way. And the guns they sell are usually they're recreational. They're for hunting or target shooting. They don't sell handguns or anything like that. I've never seen gun stores. Living in LA, I saw gun stores. There were gun shows I could have gone to. So there's definitely this fear among Japanese that, America's dangerous. Look at all the news. There's shootings all the time. And why can people get guns so easily? And this is not just Japan. I mean, the rest of the world is saying this. This is not news, of course, to any American, I'm sure. The rest of the world is asking, what is up with America? Why do the citizens have guns? And again, this is another topic I can blab on and on about for an entire podcast, which I probably will. But I'm just saying, this is what they think of us. This is time and time again. I've heard this in Japan, of course. America is dangerous. Look at Chicago in the news a lot lately too. It's just shocking to me that a city like Tokyo, which is well over 13.5 million, I believe, just in central Tokyo, and you count the entire metropolis area of Tokyo, and it's I think one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world. I don't know how it compares with Sao Paulo, but anyways, it's massive. There's a huge population all packed in. And you'd think a city like that, it's bigger than New York, would have slums. But really, I can't think of any areas that compare to the slums in cities I've seen in America. And you look at the LA slums, it looks like a third world country. It's like you're not even in America anymore. The poverty level is so shocking that that's a slum to me. It looks like war-torn Afghanistan. It's shocking. And I've never, ever seen any area like that in Tokyo. There's some areas that aren't... there's like red light districts and places with like lots of sex industry shops and stuff with some shady characters. But, that's like... That's like maybe like West Hollywood. Not West Hollywood, like Hollywood, like the Sunset Strip on a weekend or something. There's some shady characters. There's some shady characters everywhere in LA, at least, in American cities, I'm thinking. In Tokyo, I'm amazed. It's no utopia, of course, but there's really not much of a slum I can think of. Nothing that compares to the slums in America. And that's what's so shocking to me, is that the city as big as Tokyo doesn't really have slums. And I don't know, is the slums and danger and poverty, I'm sure they're all related, of course, in our American culture. We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of strengths, of course, too. But it's been said a lot, is that I've heard it so many times, America's dangerous. I don't really want to study in America. It's not first on my list to study abroad or to visit. It's just too dangerous. I'd rather go to Australia or Canada. There's not as many guns, not as much crime, and I hear it a lot. So that's what they think of us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Japanatron. It's kind of a short one, but stay tuned. I'm hoping to get back on the horse and record some more. I got some more ideas. If you like the show, please rate and review. I'm on iTunes. I'm also on, I got my website, Japanatron.com, which will take you to my page on my main site, which is mondaiji.com. That also includes my blog. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and do all that crap. You can find links to all that on Japanatron.com. So that's the main one to check. All right. Have a good day, everybody, and talk to you later. Bye.
Welcome to Japanatron. Japanatron, 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 Japanatron.
You have received this transmission from the Comedy Podcast Network. For more shows, visit comedypodcastnetwork.com.